Who is the editor? What does the editor do? What is the editor's role? I want to talk a little bit more about the nitty-gritty daily experience of what it's like to actually be an editor and what you're actually doing. Film is the great collaborative art form. That's what people call it. It sounds a little pretentious, but it is mostly true. Now, there's kind of a workflow that we need to be familiar with, a process through which you produce pretty much anything. And no matter if you have a crew of 1 or 1,001, basically no matter the size of your cast and crew, there's some key milestones that all productions go through. And we need to understand those milestones in order to understand where the editor fits. So a normal video production will go through 5 phases: development, pre-production, production, post-production, and distribution. Development is exactly what it sounds like. Somebody somewhere decided that something needed to get made. Maybe this is an accomplished film director writing his next film. Maybe this is a corporation realizing that they need interviews taken care of. Maybe this is an artist coming up with visuals for his next music video. Development is basically the ideation phase, the writing phase. We're taking the very bare bones of an idea and turning it into being something. There's kind of some gray space between all of these sections. They don't have hard and fast ins and outs all the time. But generally speaking, when we start in pre-production is when we have a locked script or we have finalized ideas to go towards a specific video. Pre-production is now the logistics. It's getting everything ready for production. Now we don't just have the idea for a script, but we're hiring people. We're planning shoot days. Pre-production is preparation for the production. We're going to decide that we need a crew of 5 people and that those people need to be taken care of over the course of 4 days when they're going to be shooting 12 hours a day. So we're going to need to get money together to pay them. We're going to need to provide food for them. They're going to need to bring all of their gear. They're going to need to put that gear a specific place on location. You can see how it balloons very rapidly. And a producer's main job is to oversee pre-production and production. So once we're prepared, everything's lined up, everybody's on the same page, that first day of shooting is the first day of production. Production is what we call the time spent actively shooting. Every day you have a director of photography behind a camera shooting talent and a director telling them what they would like to have happen. That is a production day. For many, I'd probably say the vast majority of the kinds of projects that I have worked on, that most people work on, production is limited to as few days as possible because production is usually, by far, the most expensive part of the process. Even if you have a crew of only a couple of people, and even if you're limiting your ideas quite a bit, it just balloons in expenses. Film is a very expensive medium. Usually, the crew will use a few key documents to inform what they're shooting. They'll use the script as written by the writers, and as updated and improved on by the directors and maybe cast members, anyone else who's been approved to kind of help change things up. They also use a shot list, which is pretty important for editors. It's a list of all the individual shots that the director wants to get of the entire thing. It can be really helpful to have that shot list in the editing room. Once every line of the script has been accounted for and every shot out, production ends and post-production begins. Post-production is where the editors live. This is what we do. A large or small crew of people that we may or may not have been involved with were on a set where we may or may not have been and shot out a bunch of footage that's now on a bunch of hard drives. The editor's job is to take this mess of clips and to turn it into one cohesive, concise, well-constructed story. Post-production is where you take all of this stuff that's been created and you finally funnel it, you channel it, you turn it into the one thing that the audience will actually be experiencing. Now, the editor is not the only person in post-production. There's quite a large group of specialists who do different things. You have colorists who color. You have sound engineers and sound mixers who design and engineer and mix the sound. You have graphic artists, animators, illustrators, special effects artists, the list can go on. And obviously, who you hire depends on the needs of your production. That's usually decided by the producer or the director. It can get a little bit convoluted because it kind of depends on how many crew members you have. But there's a certain set of responsibilities that have to be done, and they're usually done by an editor. I'll try to explain the full thing, and then I'll break it out by smaller roles. All of this footage is shot on set, and it's usually shot completely out of order. There's been more than one project that I've been on where the last scene of the project was the first thing that we shot. The shooting schedule is usually determined by the availability of locations on certain days or the availability of the cast members. Almost every production I've ever been on is shot out of order. So the first main job of the on-site editor or the assistant editor, or the editor if there's only one, is to organize all of that footage, to make sure that it's safe and well stored and backed up, then to import it into the project file and make it make sense. Synchronize the audio to the video, synchronize multiple videos together, give them names, give them descriptions, help us understand what's going on. Once everything's organized, once everything's condensed down and understandable, it's then our job to take these tens or hundreds of hours of footage and to condense it down into whatever it is that the end product is supposed to be. Are we doing a 45-minute network TV reality special? Are we doing a 15-minute internet sitcom? Are we doing a 5-minute public service announcement? Are we doing a 3-minute branded ad? The editor's job is to take whatever footage is available and then turn it into something that meets the client's needs and will be a fun experience for the audience to watch. So it depends on the size of your crew. Sometimes it's just one editor, sometimes it's a couple of editors, sometimes it's an assistant editor and an editor, and sometimes it's the editorial department. But whatever it is, editorial is in charge of organizing that footage, making sure that it makes sense, and then converting it into a single, cohesive, concise viewing experience. Now, the main part of the editor's job ends once the cut is locked. When the directors and client approve the final pacing and structure of each individual shot, we lock the cut. At that point, it's passed off to the colorist and the sound mixer and the graphic designer and a bunch of other people to spice it up, to make it interesting, to create more emotion surrounding it. But the editor is sometimes still not done. There's another job, very related, called a finishing editor. And their job is to basically take all of the pieces that are being done by other people and put them together into the finished product, or do it themselves. The last section of the production process is called distribution. After it's finalized and completed and there is a final deliverable that goes out the door, usually it's out of the hands of the original creators at that point, and it's sent to a distribution company. These distribution companies specialize in the marketing of the thing. So obviously this is different with different videos. Pixar makes a final deliverable, ships it off to Disney, and then Disney distributes the film. And Pixar doesn't do too much with it after that. They sell toys and they have their own monetization methods with their movies, but it's being distributed. It's no longer being created. For more small-time clients, distribution might look like the corporate video being shown at the seminar, or it might look like getting uploaded to YouTube. We're not here to learn about distribution at all. I don't know it very well myself. In a few more sections of this course, you'll learn more about the development, pre-production, and production process, because the more familiar you are with what's happened before you, the better you're going to do your own job. But the emphasis of this course is to teach you how to be the best editor to help the post-production process go as smoothly as possible. So the director and the producer hand you a puzzle. During production, they manufactured a bunch of puzzle pieces. And it's up to you, the editor, to put the puzzle together. It's even more complicated than that, though, because there are many ways to put the puzzle together, and none of them are exactly correct. It's kind of up to your interpretation combined with what the client and the director want. So that's where practice and skill and repetition and experience over time comes in. You start to get a feel for what's the most entertaining way to put the puzzle together. So as editors, we're going to take a kind of often chaotic, jumbled mess of footage. We're going to make sense of it and understand it And then we're going to assemble it and compile it and refine it and iterate on it over and over and over again until we come out with something that's a fun experience to watch. It messes with your emotions in some way, that tells a story in some way, that at the very least communicates the information and accomplishes the purpose of the client. It's cool. It's really cool. I've been stuck in doing it for so long that I haven't really taken a step back and been like, oh, geez, this is cool. It's a cool thing. As an editor, you don't have to know how to run the camera. You just have to understand the stuff that's coming out of the camera. Your job is to take these little individual beads and threads and assemble them into the tapestry. Pretty much no matter what, if you're getting hired on as an editor, then there's somebody who came before you who used a camera to record stuff, and often they're incredible artists who make these beautiful individual pieces. But each of those pieces on their own don't really do anything. We put it together. We assemble all the Lego pieces, which on their own are just little bricks, and turn them into something fascinating and imaginative. Sometimes as an editor, you get a client or a director who has a very specific prescription of what it's supposed to be. And in that case, you're using a little bit less imagination. You're just following the instructions in the Lego book, but you're still the one building the thing, and that's cool. Other times you'll get a client or a director who lean on your perspective much deeper. Maybe even the script was experimental and doesn't quite have a defined structure. At that point, it's free game. You have hundreds or thousands of different Lego pieces at your disposal, and you get to build whatever you want with them. There's a blank canvas and resources on both sides. And your job is to just build it into something unique and different and new. So sometimes, depending on what your client or director wants, you're going to be attached, married to the script. You're going to do exactly what that script says because it needs to be very specific. And other times, I've done short films and I've specifically requested to not see the script and to not be given a summary from the director of the story because I would rather figure out the story in the clips that exist for me. Does that make it's cool? It's cool. And you're going to learn how to do it. So that's who the editor is. That's what an editor does. It's cool.